This is Bill Varney from Your Saltwater Guide and Fish the Surf with your Thursday, March 27th surf fishing report. So let's start up in Santa Barbara. You know, we had this turnover of the water up there. We had winds and storms last week. It really dropped the water temperature all along the California Bight about 3 degrees. But that temperature came right back up again because we continue to have these swells from the south that are offsetting those northwest swells. So fishing did improve in Santa Barbara this week. There was some really good perch fishing really all along the Santa Barbara coast. The fish weren't very big. They're about palm size or so, but they were biting in big numbers. The big news up there though is the halibut fishing. The halibut fishing was particularly good in the last week, and that's as a result, I'm sure, of the grunion run. Although they didn't have a lot of grunion in that area, there were some that came ashore, and of course it's normal for Santa Barbara to not have as big a runs as San Diego has at the beginning of the season. Once some warm water makes its way north, their runs will increase, and that will happen just not this weekend, but probably right in the middle of April when we have our next grunion run. So halibut fishing was good. There were halibut caught at Graveyards, which is just south of East Beach. Seems odd to say. Goleta, near the Goleta Pier, More Mesa Beach in that zone, and then all the way up at El Capitan. There were some nice halibut taken in that area. Now over the next couple of weeks, I'd say we get in 2 or 3 weeks from now, look for the halibut, striper, and the white sea bass to really turn on in the Santa Barbara area as those grunion come in bigger numbers. Things are really looking up there. Going down to Carpinteria, fishing in Carpinteria, kind of the Carpinteria to La Conchita area, was unbelievably good for big barred surf perch. Amazing. So down in La Conchita, for example, last week, some fish up to 16 inches were caught down there, and the choice bait in both those places were both lug and bloodworms. I know we're beginning to see some sand crabs. They'll make their way into the mix here as the water warms up a little bit, but right now those bloodworms and those lugworms really up and down the coast are doing a massive job. And then we go down to Ventura. You know, Ventura's having this battle this week, bam, 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 between Ventura and the South Bay as to who's got the best fishing. I think the biggest news in Ventura this week was there were several corbina caught there. One was over 24 inches. I think it was about a 26-inch corbina. That's a corbina that's 15 or 20 years old. That's a big one. And what was it caught on? A sand crab. And what did we learn about the sand crabs? This is something that some people knew, but others really don't. You know, when we go to the beach this time of year and we find those micro sand crabs, they've got to come from somewhere. So often if you dig underneath them, anywhere from maybe 8 to 12 inches beneath those, you'll find a bed of the bigger sand crabs, the moms and dads that are down there. So that's what this angler did. He found some crabs in Ventura, probably near the pier, dug down beneath them, found some bigger ones, used them for bait, caught a big corbina. The other news for there in Ventura, which is really good, is that really from Ventura Harbor all the way up to the pier at C Street, any one of those jetties have been kicking out all kinds of buttermouth, opali, I've seen some cabezon from there, and many of those have been on grubs, lugworms, or bloodworms. That's really been the bigger bait down there in Ventura to work. Then we make our way down to Malibu. Wow, Malibu's back in the mix again. Thank goodness. We hadn't heard anything in a couple of weeks. It's quiet, of course, anywhere between Leo Carrillo really and all the way down to the Santa Monica Pier, pretty much closed and quiet down there. But that Leo Carrillo to Point Magoo, it continues to kick out those big perch. Many 13, 14, 15 inches here in the last week that I saw in Malibu. And a lot of those fish have been caught on the grubs, once again those lug and bloodworms, and then people have been picking up some sand crabs, bringing them up there and fishing them there too. So Malibu continues to get good. I hope we get some more reports next week and the report area spreads out a little bit wider than that. Then we make our way down to the hot spot, the South Bay. The South Bay continues to be good for yellowfin croaker, barred surf perch, walleye surf perch, buttermouth surf perch, and even striper down there. Fishing has been good down in that area in the South Bay now for, gosh, it's been a couple of months. I know that's going to turn around in the next 4 or 5 days over this swell we're going to see beginning really today, over the weekend, this huge west swell from a storm just about 600 miles off the California coast. It's going to be large overhead surf. There's a warning now for the beach. But in addition to that, because it's of such a close fetch to us, The waves are very, very close together, less than 11 seconds. So it'll be big surf, very close together, very rough. That will happen to blow out a lot of the west-facing beaches. So it may slow down fishing in the South Bay. But this week, fishing remained good there, of course. In El Segundo, there was a 35-plus inch halibut caught there on a Battle Star or a Lucky Craft hard bait. So, you know, the halibut are in there. They're following the grunion in. And last year we had a massive run of grunion at Venice Beach. So that could be part of it. We'll keep our eye on that. That should improve for sure. And then the other thing is that down at Rat Beach, so right after Torrance, the beach is right up against Palos Verdes there. There's been a really good bite down there and some big opali, buttermouth, and I want to remind everybody too in that area. So if you go all the way down to the end of beach there, Rat Beach, you go down the ramp at Torrance, you go to the left, which would be kind of southwest toward Palos Verdes. There's rocks that go along there and they go from the beach all the way up the coast and around Palos Verdes. Between where the sand ends and the rocks begin and where Haggerty's Point is, which is maybe half a mile up the beach, that area is traditionally very good this time of year for striper fishing. Hardly anybody ever fishes that area. So keep your eye on that. That could improve. Hopefully a couple anglers will get down there and hook a few fish down there. So once again, the South Bay remains good. I think it's going to slow down over the weekend with this swell and then pick up again next week. So that's good. And then down to Orange County. Of course, Orange County continues to be good. There's been quite a few anglers fishing in the Belmont Shore area. There's been quite a few halibut in that area. More sublegals than legals, but that is a traditionally good spot for halibut. Grunion don't necessarily like to come in there in the Belmont Shore inside the harbor because the sand's relatively hard, but some do come in, and because it's so calm, those halibut get really, really close to shore. And the best baits for sure to use in that area would be any one of really kind of three things: Battle Star or Lucky Craft baits, and then the other would be a sardine, anchovy, or grunion. Most importantly, on the Carolina rig, just cast in a fan casting motion, 10, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and slowly reel it into shore. That's how you're going to find fish in that area. And then we make our way down a little bit south of that and we get down to the Huntington Beach to Newport Beach section. So Huntington Harbor to Newport Harbor, let's say, in that whole zone along there. Fishing has been good down there for barred perch. There's not been any giant ones. There's been a couple of big ones, but in general, they're all those palm-sized fish. But we have seen in the Bolsa Chica area some really good fishing on spot fin croaker, and then we've seen some really good fishing on yellowfin croaker down in the Surfside area for people that are using crocodiles and Castmasters for the yellowfin croaker, those shiny lures that you can cast out and cover a lot of surface area. Remember, those yellowfin croaker, they always run in big schools, so if you find one, often you'll find many. And they run in schools of different sizes, so you may catch one that's maybe a foot long, and others that could be as many as 8 pounds. So there's a lot of yellowfin croaker along the coast. They really seem to be kind of concentrated in that area, and maybe once again they were following the grunion into that corner. So Orange County remains to be really very good, and I think that'll get better as time goes on. There's also been some really good reports of perch and a couple corbina caught right at the cliffs there in Huntington Beach at Bolsa Chica and at Golden West Street and Pacific Coast Highway. Right around that zone has always been a traditionally good place along that area for surf fishing. So we make our way down to San Diego, and gosh, the bite has really picked up in San Diego, excuse me. What has happened is the bite for spotfin croaker between the Oceanside Pier and the Oceanside Harbor has been absolutely red hot on bloodworms. A really good place to go down there to get bait is Pacific Coast Bait and Tackle. That's a place that you can pick up your bloodworms or lugworms or other surf baits and certainly get surf advice down there. But that area's been good. And then we go down to Torrey Pines and Pacific Beach. There's been some really good fishing for those smaller barred surf perch, like that hand size. But the big news in that area, especially in Pacific Beach, there were several corbina caught this week. They were small ones at 12 to 14 inch size, which is a good sign for spring, but it's really the beginning of things to come as the sand crabs fill in on the beaches in San Diego that have sand. And then the last thing about San Diego is I've had so many reports of areas that are anywhere near rock structures, so harbor entrance, jetties, estuary entrances, all of those places. Quite a few opali, sargo, and buttermouth perch caught in those areas. Anglers have been using lugworms, bloodworms, mussel, and some grubs for those fish. So anywhere you're near that rock structure right now where the water is still below 60 degrees, you're going to have a really good shot at some of these bigger perch. So the last things I want to cover is, number one, we talk about the runoff from Pacific Palisades. We haven't had a lot of information on that lately. I'll give you an update on that as soon as I get more information on that. I know there's a number of universities that are researching the water right now, so we're looking for their results. Second of all, Duracent baits. All of you who asked for those Duracent baits, we've got about 60 of them out already. We probably have another 50 to go. We'll get that done this weekend. We'll get all those Duracent baits out to you so you can test them in the surf. Let us know how they're doing. So far, they're doing absolutely great. One of our anglers caught a 3-pound yellowfin croaker, a 4-pound corbina, and 4 or 5 big surf perch, both walleye and barred perch, using the Gamakatsu bait. So they definitely work. And then the next thing is I want to remind everybody to sign up for my newsletter on the front page of fishthesurf.com. Fishthesurf.com. You'll find an area just to put in your email address. You get our free newsletter, comes out once a month, covers all the things of the previous month, and talks about the new month we're in and how you can prepare for that. So that's really important for you. And then another thing is we're having a Bolsa Chica surf fishing clinic on July 26th. You need to register for it. You'll find that at surffishtackle.com. Also at fishthesurf.com, under the seminar section, you'll find all kinds of information about that. Sign up for it quick. It's already half full. It's only been open for 4 days. It's about halfway full. If you want to get in there for July 26th, you learn right on the beach how to surf fish. We'll meet you at 6 a.m. We'll re-rig everybody. We'll have about a 15-minute clinic. We'll go down on the sand for 2 or 3 hours. We provide all of the bait, donuts, coffee, and we teach you right on the beach how to catch fish. It's lots of fun, and there's no faster way to learn. And then the last thing I want to cover is this grunion run that's coming up. So it's coming up this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's going to start after about 10 o'clock at night. You'll normally find the second day, that'd be Sunday, better than the other days. That's when the largest group biomass of grunion come to shore. If you do go down there, do me a favor. Please take some pictures and video and email them to me, fishthesurf@mail.com. If you could please send them to me. I'm working on a scientific study for the commission so they can revisit this grunion issue. I'd really appreciate any of those things that you could send to me. So thank you so much for watching today. Good luck on the beach, and I'll see you next week.